we have 8 decks, one of my favorite cards ever. This deck is such a social butterfly. This was the card I bought this deck for. It was an investment. I love my things. Hello everybody, it's Sylvie. Welcome or welcome back to Tarot Magpie. I hope you are doing all kinds of good today. Today I am going to chat through a selection of decks from my collection, which are the decks that convinced me right away. These are the decks that upon first reading I was sold. I was connected with them, I was working with them, and some of these actually, quite a few of these were decks I nearly didn't buy, which I think is really interesting. But anyway, this is kind of a follow-up to my video earlier this week on the decks that need to earn their keep, the decks that need to prove their worth and earn their place in my collection. This is kind of the inverse of that video. These are the decks that instantly proved themselves, more or less. And yeah, like I say, I nearly didn't buy quite a few of these decks. And not even in like I deliberated and made sure that I really wanted them, because then it would make sense that I connect with them really well if I'd like really done my research. But literally I just nearly didn't buy a lot of these because I didn't think I needed them, or I wasn't sure that they would be very unique or additive, I guess, to my practice. And like, I was wrong. I was so wrong. So anyway, I'm going to get straight into it. First one being the Wayhome Tarot. This is an indie deck. And this is one that I kind of knew I would love it before I actually had it. I'd seen some photos, I'd seen some walkthroughs, I think. Maybe not walkthroughs, but I know I'd seen this on YouTube. So I'd seen it kind of in practice almost. And I'd really fallen in love with some of the depictions, like the 9 of Swords is really good and the 10 of Wands are both really good. 9 of Swords, we have this like mind pollution, which I think is brilliant, and then the 10 of Wands is literally burnout. So I really like a lot of the images in this card, and they're so simple, but I think they're so to the point. The Emperor and the Empress in this deck I also really love. I have them currently sitting out separately because I'm going to be filming my top tarot trumps videos. So yeah, I love this deck, and I loved this deck before I saw it. This 9 of Pentacles as well, this is the other card that had me like instantly sold. This was the card I bought this deck for. Like, if we get right down to it, this is the card I bought this deck for, the 9 of Pentacles. This is one that I connected with right away, and like I said, I kind of knew I was going to connect with it. But that's not always the case. I've had decks where I've loved the images through a screen, just like I kind of loved this through a screen. You know, I can think that they're really good depictions of card meanings, but the reading experience itself just kind of falls flat. And I'm thinking in particular of the Unfolding Path, which I don't have anymore. I've rehomed it. And I completely fell in love with that through the screen. I thought the images were gorgeous, but like it was just like nothing when I actually read with it. So it's not always a guarantee, but in this case, I knew I would love it before I got my hands on it. And I was right. You knew this had to make an appearance. This is the Terra Volatile. And this one I also nearly didn't buy for myself because this is expensive. It's an indie deck on the pricier side, and then it also ships from, oh, I forget exactly where it ships from, but it's somewhere in Europe, so the shipping is a little bit higher as well. So like overall, this is quite a pricey deck. I also got the expansion pack that you can get with more alternative cards. So it was an investment. We'll say that. And I was not sure if it was an investment that like I really needed to make, because at the end of the day, a tarot deck is a tarot deck, and we only need so many. My train of thought has been interrupted by a cup of coffee, which I'm not mad about, but I don't know what I was saying. But basically, the Terra Volatile, you know how much I love this deck. I feel like I haven't talked about it so much recently on the channel, between leaning into like my spring decks and other decks taking up the kind of dark and moody space in my practice. I haven't been grabbing this one as often lately, but it's still definitely up there as a favorite. My first reading with this deck was just standout. It just was so directly communicating with me. I love seeing the 8 of Wands come up while I'm saying that. But I can't really describe it, but it's just like this deck has got extra tarot in it. And like I say, it comes with an expansion pack, so it kind of does have extra tarot in it, but like that's not what I mean. I only read with the traditional 78. There is an extra vessel suit, which I don't incorporate into my reading with this as of yet. It's the normal amount of tarot cards is what I'm saying. But when I draw cards, it's just like, it's so loud. There is a direct line between this deck and my brain. It is speaking directly to me, and it has done since the first reading that I did with this deck. And like all the little synchronicities in the images lined up with stuff that was going on in my situation, which I'm not going to get into, but you know, it was there. I love this Princess of Cups with the shell. Beautiful. Anyway, this deck is beautiful, and it's like in my brain. It's like right there, you know? So that is the Terra Volatile. All right, number 3. I think this was the one that actually inspired this video. These are in no particular order, by the way. This is the Lifelines Color Outside the Lines edition. This is an indie deck that is out of print, unfortunately, but you can still get the mini black and white one. And this is just, it's a Rider-Waite-Smith clone. This I showed, yeah, this was an example in the decks that need to earn their keep video as a deck that instantly earned its keep. And yeah, the reason actually was this inner child spread in the guidebook. There are some really cool spreads in here. I really like Thomas's spreads. He makes a lot of spreads on his website. But in here, there is an inner child spread, working with your inner child. And I think this was a new deck to me. I wanted to have a play with it. So I thought, okay, I'll start with the guidebook, which is a very sensible place to start. And it has this little exercise for the inner child. And then it's got the Market of Memory spread, which is 6 cards, and then Healing the Wounded Child as well. But I was like, okay, I'll give this spread a go. And it just, my God, it hit so hard. And it also was 2 cards that had been repeating for me in my daily draw that month. Also popped out of this deck. And like I say, that was the first time I was using this deck. It was just so, it was so cool. It's so cool when the tarot does that, where it's just like so clearly talking to you. I also really love and really instantly fell in love with the negative space. I love negative space as a concept in tarot in general, either as like a visual artistic thing or just like a way that I think about reading the cards as reading the negative space. And this deck does visually mirror that. And the way that I try and read the connections between the cards and like the spaces in the cards and what that means, and not just the cards themselves as single entities. This deck just puts that to such good use. I didn't even realize at first that that was why I liked it so much, but the more I've thought about it and the more I've thought about my practice and the way that I read, the more like obvious it is that like, of course that's why I like this deck. And of course this deck instantly had a place in my collection, and I felt like I could read with it really easily because it's set up for the way that I think about the tarot in the first place. Like, this isn't a deck I could read as keyword flashcards if I tried, because that's just not how I think about the tarot in general, but that really isn't how I see this deck. Like, you know, 10 of Pentacles, okay, sure, legacy, family, but that's not what we're seeing in this card. I don't know if I can explain it very well. I think this probably needs to be a blog post because I'm like having a lot of thoughts. But I need to get them out to figure out what shape they are. And I won't subject you to any more of that on camera. The Eldritch Overload Tarot. This is on this list specifically as the deck and the guidebook read together, but the guidebook is in a box and I can't be grabbing it right now. But when this deck is on the list, it's really on this list with the guidebook. That reading them together just convinced me immediately that this deck was going to be a good one. The first reading I did with this was like spooky with how specific it was to my situation in the guidebook and in the extra, it's almost like journaling prompts or like questions to ask yourself that each card entry has. And those specific questions were like spookily appropriate to what I was reading about. Yeah, it was spooky in a good way. So I really do recommend the guidebook, the big codex guidebook, if you can swing it, if you're getting this deck or if you have this deck, because it's a really solid guidebook anyway, but just the added tarot-y details. I feel like this deck is like visually very bright and fun, and visually this deck doesn't necessarily give you too much, and I think it really benefits from having the guidebook as well as the cards themselves. So that is the Eldritch Overload. This also was a deck that I nearly didn't buy because it was an expensive Kickstarter, and the next one I also nearly didn't buy because I thought I only wanted it because it was a relatively affordable Kickstarter. So there's the like duality for you, but both of them are like, do I need them? Is the Eldritch Overload gonna be worth the money to me? Especially, like I say, with the codex, it was an expensive purchase. And then Tarot of the Crystal World, I wasn't sure if I actually really wanted it or if I just wanted it because it was a relatively cheap Kickstarter deck and I was kind of enticed by the price. Anyway, this is the Tarot of the Crystal World, and I'm so glad that I did get it because this has been one of my favourite decks of last year. I'm pretty sure it was in my standout decks video, and I love this so much. I really, really love this deck. I've talked about it a lot. I can't believe I nearly didn't get it. It's been so good to have in rotation in my practice because it reads like a Rider-Waite-Smith, but it's not a Rider-Waite-Smith clone, and it doesn't read like a Rider-Waite-Smith clone, but it's very clearly based in that system. I like the kind of perspective in a lot of the cards. I like the setting of the deck. Visually, I really enjoy it. I just feel very connected to this deck. I just feel like I understand this deck. And I understand the world the deck is set in, if that makes any sense. I have read for other people and about situations, reading for myself, but situations that involve other people. And it's worked really well for that as well. It's a really good deck, and it's really important in my collection because I don't have a whole ton of decks that are that versatile that I can pick up in like any mood, any frame of mind for any kind of question. I like the fact that a lot of my decks are kind of, I mean, let's be real, I could read with, this is going to sound cocky, but I could read with any deck for anything. Like, as long as it's based in a system that I know, I could read with any deck. But when it comes to enjoying my practice, I like having decks that feel a little bit more specific and feel like they're better suited to certain kinds of readings, or that I get on better within a certain kind of mood. But this is such like a good all-rounder. I really love it. That is the Tarot of the Crystal World. All right, some of these have been quite deep. This one is so much fun. This is Tarot de Dios de los Tres. This is a Fournier deck. I bought this because I thought it looked fun, and it is. But it kind of took me by surprise with how instantly I clicked with this deck. Like, this deck is a gossip, but she is also dead on the money. Like, she's so spot on. I pulled a couple cards for myself. When I first got this deck, I was like about to go away for the weekend, and it came in the post, and I was like, okay, like I'll pull a few cards, like have a play with this deck before I head out later today. Again, spookily accurate, and it was related to the like social plans I had coming up that weekend. And I was like, okay, this is fun, and I really like the artwork, and it'd be a fun one to like pull for other people. So I took it with me to stay with my friends. Ended up doing a couple readings for my friends while I was there, and again, it was like so accurate and so talkative. Like, this deck is such a social butterfly, and it just wants to read about people. I haven't even tried using it for more like introspective solitary stuff because, like, why would I? I have so many decks, and this deck is so good at what it does. So I just, that's kind of like the opposite to the Tarot of the Crystal World. This I use as a completely versatile deck. It's one of the decks that if I don't know what to read with, I pull this one. I pull this one or the Fifth Spirit, which isn't in this video. But the Tarot of the Crystal World and the Fifth Spirit are my go-to, I don't know what deck to use, decks. This one has a specific job, almost. This has earned its very specific place in my collection. It likes to talk about people. It likes to talk about social situations. It doesn't want to do or again, I don't even know if it doesn't want to do. I don't want to use it for anything that is more like solitary and introspective, because it's so good at reading for other people that I just kind of reserve it for that. So that is Tarot del Dios de los Tres, Heart and Hands Tarot. This one, it kind of did convince me right away, it kind of didn't. So I got this deck while this was an impulse purchase, completely impulse purchase. I have a walkthrough up on the channel of my first impressions of this deck. I thought it was cool. I didn't actually pull it out to read with it in any kind of serious or even semi-serious capacity. Like, I think I just pulled a few cards like at random, just to like shuffle and play with a deck and like just see what popped out for fun. But I didn't like sit down to do a reading with this until, God, like some point this year, like I think some point during March or April. But the first serious reading I did with this deck, I was like, oh, okay, this is really good. Like, this is really, really good. The cards that came out were so accurate. I liked the guidebook entries. I also just really love the artwork, and I was a little bit worried that I wouldn't get on with the black and white imagery, which is an issue that I've had with other decks, but that's not a problem here. I think it's these big fat borders. It creates enough separation, there's enough variation in like line thickness and shape that the images don't look too visually repetitive, and I can like tell them apart, which is good. That's what we want. But yeah, so this convinced me right away in terms of the timeline, the series of events with this deck, because the first real reading I did with this deck, I was like sold, because prior to that I've been like, well, this is cool, did I really need to buy it though, because I kind of hadn't really touched it. And in hindsight I'm like, yes, like again, I'm not going to say I needed to buy this because it's a deck, it's not, you know, food or rent, but I'm glad I bought this. I'm glad I made the impulse decision to buy this deck. That was an impulse purchase that really paid off for me. Right, finally, we have the Ritual Tarot, which is actually one of the decks that came in. I think I got this in a week before or a week after the Heart and Hands. I can't remember the order, but I know that I did 2 walkthroughs really close together because there's videos for both of these on the channel. And so I was just like obsessed with the Ritual, and that's partly why the Heart and Hands didn't get a look in for a while. The Ritual Tarot is one that I was immediately sold purely based on the artwork before I'd even done a reading, which isn't a way that I like to behave towards my decks. I want them to be functional tools. As much as I love beautiful artwork and I do collect decks that I think are beautiful, I want them also to be functional. And I can't say what I would have done if this read like shit, if I'd be keeping it anyway. But thankfully, it reads really well for me. I really like what it has to say. One of my favorite cards ever. I talk about this all the time. It is the Princess of Cups. I just have to give it a shout out, you know? I have to give my favorite cards a shout out. What I'm saying is that I loved this deck before I read with it, but in like a different way to the Wayhome Tarot, because the Wayhome I thought looked like a really good tarot deck before I bought it. This I thought looked like a beautiful set of 78 pieces of art. I was sold on this visually because I just think it's gorgeous, whereas the Wayhome I was sold on because I thought it looked like a good tarot deck. There is a distinction there. This was also another one that I nearly didn't get because I intentionally decided not to back the Kickstarter for some insane reason. I think I was trying to save money. I was trying to be sensible, and I was like, I don't need this deck because it's a tarot deck and I don't need a tarot deck. My other favorite card is the Ace of Pentacles. And then when a UK-based indie shop got some stock in, I jumped on it. I jumped on it so fast. I was away for the weekend. I was away celebrating a friend's birthday. And I think I had signed up for, like an in-stock alert, and I got that email and I immediately bought this deck. We were chilling, we were drinking a glass of wine and watching, I think we were watching the Taylor Swift Reputation tour movie on Netflix, and I just took 5 minutes to order a deck. But anyway, that is an irrelevant detail. I nearly didn't get this, is the point of that story. I nearly didn't purchase this, and then it was actually really reasonable. comparatively speaking. This is an expensive deck, but the price that I was able to get it for, including shipping, was, I think, maybe even cheaper than the Kickstarter might have cost me because of shipping. Just the way it worked out made sense. Like, I would never have bought this to ship it from the US. It's just too expensive, and like with shipping, it would not have been worth it. And even with how much I love this deck, I can still say it wouldn't have been worth it because that's just so much money. But anyway, I nearly didn't get this. The stars aligned. I was able to get myself a copy. I'm extremely happy with it. Immediately in love. Fall more in love every time I read with it. So that is everything. We have 8 decks that convinced me immediately that they needed to be in my collection and that I needed to be reading with them. I love all of these very much. I am excited to continue to work with all of these, especially the slightly newer Heart and Hands, which I haven't had a chance to use so much. I feel like I haven't touched the Lifelines in forever, so I'm excited to dig that back out. This, of course, being after I have moved, so not for like a month. Looking forward to continuing to work with these. I think they're all really great decks. I love having them at my collection. And it's fun to just take a minute to be like appreciative of the stuff that I've got. It feels a little bit self-indulgent to come on here and film a video like, I love my things. But I do. These are good things. Anyway, all of that being said, I am going to let you go. Thank you so much for spending some time with me. If you've made it this far in the video, I really hope you've enjoyed. Let me know what your insta-love decks were, and give me a like if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.